Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Service Shop Procedures class. I'm Mr. Young, and I'll be the leader of today's discussion. Today, we're going to be talking about oils, guys, and you ain't going to believe this, man. There is more to talk about oils than you ever care to imagine. And then all the information on the back of an oil bottle, it's like endless. So today we're going to tackle some of the things that we're interested in about oil. Okay. And I would assume many of you or most of you have all done an oil change before. But what are we actually pouring into the bottle? I mean, what are we actually pouring out of the bottle into the car? And here, I've got a good one for you here. I've got a good one for you. In fact, we'll even practice this on camera. I wish I had a bigger funnel, but that's the only funnel I've got. Oh, what are we going to practice on camera, Mr. Young? Well, here, I'll just throw it out now. This is coming up a little bit later. But my question to you is, when you're using an oil bottle like this, which way do we pour it into the car?
Sideways.
Sideways.
So we've got sideways?
The opposite way.
Like this?
No, the other way.
Okay, like this?
Yeah, that way.
Or is it like this? But I do like the sideways thing. I do like the sideways things. I hate to tell you this, hot shots. I think sideways is actually wrong. Here you are, been going to school all these years, and you said sideways. Hey, don't worry. I'm not going to tell anybody. I'm not going to tell anybody you said that. But we'll try an experiment today if I don't make too much of a mess in the room here. We're going to pour it out different ways in the classroom and then actually see which way is best and which way is it supposed to be poured out. So one of you guys was actually right. We'll see who's right in the end. All right. So pretty cool stuff. So what we're getting ready to talk about now is really a story. This is a long story about oils. Okay. So let me turn my screen around here. I think I'll do this one here. I think I'll work on this screen here. Work on that screen there. And this story, you ever heard of the Beverly Hillbillies? It's a story about a man named Jed.
Yeah, I know Michael.
And Jed went out hunting for some coon one day. And when he went out hunting for some coon, he shot at the raccoon, and up came bubbling crude, black gold, Texas tea. Well, the next thing you know, old Jed's a millionaire because he struck oil on his little farm there. And it's time for Jed to move out of there. And so this story became the Beverly Hillbillies. So they discovered oil in their property. They loaded up the old truck and headed out to Beverly Hills. You guys never seen that story before?
No, I've never seen it.
Oh, man. So your homework assignment today is to watch an episode of the Beverly Hillbillies. When they struck oil, the oil company paid them $300 million for the rights to pull that oil. For the rights to pull that oil out of the ground. All right. Pretty cool stuff. Get ready, lab assistant. We'll be asking you some questions in a minute. You'll be taking over the screen in a few minutes. Do you guys see my PowerPoint lubrication systems?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So on lubrication systems, would you believe it, guys? Most of your wear, I got to let somebody in the room here, so I got to move this over. Hey, good morning. Welcome to the club. You made it. Hey, guys, would you believe it? Most of your wear with engines occurs because of a lack of lubrication, mainly from starting. And now that I think about this winter, it really hasn't been that cold. I mean, we haven't walked outside the shop at the end of the day here. And at the end of the day, it's like 0 outside or 5 below. So I guess we're getting away with murder a little bit. But when it's cold, especially when I work nights, okay, when I'm on the night shift and it's cold, and in the old days before COVID came along, we used to have to be in the building to about 12 midnight. So the students would get out at 11:30, and then the instructors have to hang back a little bit. So right at about 11:30, all the students would run out to their cars. It would be below 0. They would turn the key and then, and I would tell them all the time, you know, that's messing your engine up. That's messing your engine up because most of your wear occurs from starting. So where is all that oil at when you start your car?
At the bottom.
All that oil's at the bottom. If you think about it, that oil kind of migrates to the bottom of the oil pan and kind of sits there. And as that oil is cold, right, that oil is going to be thick. And so it's not getting to all of the places it should get to. And because of that, we have different oils today than what we had in my day when I was your age. For example, what do you guys think the lowest grading of oil is on the shelf at AutoZone? What would be the lowest grade you could buy? Lowest grading meaning, well, you've heard of 10W30, 10W40. So what's the lowest rating?
0.
Okay,
0.40.
you got 0. You're right. 0 what? 0 represents one number we're going to talk about today. And then that other number represents something else. So 0.
0
Go
W.
ahead. Okay, 0W20. Anybody else?
I'm with him on that one.
Okay. Well, there's got to be a Toyota owner around here somewhere. Honda?
Isn't there like a 016, something like that?
You got it, man. In fact, I had it on the window today. Didn't you look at it? On my Volvo window?
No, because sometimes at work, we be using the 016.
You got it. 016. And this has to do with viscosity. Viscosity is a little something else we're going to talk about later. Hey, lab assistant, you're also going to have to bring up a picture of Mrs. Butterworth. So find a picture of Mrs. Butterworth pouring syrup on pancakes. And we're gonna see how that's related to oil. So yeah, guys, one of the oils that is the latest, basically right around 2000 and I want to say 17, we started seeing this pop up for Hondas, Toyotas, and a couple other manufacturers are using a very thin oil, 0W16. That's some watery stuff, baby. That's some watery stuff. And it is full synthetic usually. So anyway, we're going to be talking about those in today's lesson because there is a lot, as you know, to learn about oils. Okay? And we got different types of oils. And I always wonder, is all oil the same? Like if I go to Aldi and buy oil. Mr. Young, did you say Audi? No, Aldi. Aldi, the stock-up store, the food store. They sell everything in there, man. And sometimes they got oil in there like real cheap. Or I could go to
at the dollar
Menards.
store.
I could go to Menards and buy oil, or the dollar store, 1 quart for $1. Although I went to the dollar store one time and they were selling half a quart for $1. I'm like, okay, I guess I could use a couple of these. My question is all oil the same? What do you think?
No.
You got it. Definitely it's not the same. Even though they say oil and they may say engine oil or car oil because you're trying to buy it at a low price somewhere, there are symbols on the oil that tell us what it can be used for. We're going to be talking about that today also. Pretty cool stuff. All oil is not the same. Although I have to be honest with you, you can get good quality, cheap oil because if you think about it, Walmart does not make oil. Okay, Menards does not make oil. Aldi does not make oil. None of these places make oil. So the oil is coming from a big manufacturer that basically slaps a generic tag on it. So it's possible for you to get some generic, no name oil that is actually good quality oil made by Chevron or whoever is making all the Pennzoils and stuff, just in a generic format. But there's still some codes on that oil that you have to look for to know if that cheap or generic oil is actually any good. Pretty cool stuff, huh? All right, where does oil come from? Well, first of all, I'm going to sing this song. Maybe you guys remember this song. And a lot of folks say oil came from this guy here. Do you guys remember when you were little and you were watching TV and this song came up? And you guys can tell me who sung this song too, in case you know. All right, here we go. I love you, you love me. I'm a happy family with a great big hug from me to you. Won't you say you love me too?
It's
Thank you
that
very much.
dinosaur dude.
It's a Barney.
That's the dinosaur dude, the purple dinosaur. You didn't sit there and watch Barney when you were a kid?
Yeah.
Okay, so I actually wouldn't admit that, but okay. I had children, so they watched it. But what's your excuse? So Barney, right? Fossil fuels is where the oil came from. But I have to be honest with you guys. I doubt if there were that many dinosaurs on the planet to give us all that oil. So fossil fuels just simply means from the ancients. And in the old days, our planet was full of greenery. And as that greenery rose and fell, it created coal, oil, natural gases. So the stuff we're burning today is ancient fuel or hydrocarbons. You could think of that. So we have a student here who's going to take over and show us like a tar pit. You ever seen anything like that? Old dinosaurs used to fall in there and they'd last forever. Hey, Mr. Lab Assistant, I'm off.
Alrighty, I'm on, guys. What's going on here?
Shut up, Michael.
So,
Hey.
my screen showing?
Yep.
All right, so I got this picture. You know, it really represents it. This is the only one that popped up.
What?
Nice.
For a tar pit?
Yeah, this is actually this is a tar pit. It's actually a thing. It's like a big it's like a museum thing. It's an old tar pit that never got touched.
Oh, that's pretty cool. And a
Yeah.
tar pit simply meant oil on top of the ground. Oil on
Yeah.
top of the ground.
So yeah, that's that. And then
All right.
you want me to get in the other pictures I got here?
Wait a minute. I thought we could have more than one tar pit.
This is the only thing I could find. I'll switch it up again for you real quick. Here. A lot of them are kind of bad pictures. I'm not gonna lie.
All right, how about this? How about Tar Farm? Tarr Farm.
All right.
Tar Farm. And then look up, give me a picture of a tar farm.
Yeah, I don't think that one's gonna work.
And then use, well, TARR. No, none of that's going to work. Okay, we
Yeah.
in that.
All
All
right.
right, what else we got? Now, when I was a young boy and watched some movies, there was this movie called Captain Ahab. What movie was that? Captain Ahab was doing something. You guys don't know these old movies? Didn't they make you watch that in school?
Yeah, but I fell asleep there again.
Okay, well, he was chasing this whale around, and the whale finally killed him.
Moby Dick.
Moby Dick, come on, man. We had to read that and watch the movies and stuff. So in the old days, they would take whale blubber. This is where we got our oil from, right? Whale blubber. And they would make whale oil. They were killing the whales to get the oil back in the ancient days. Hey, what am I looking at here?
This is a whale candle. This is the whale blubber, and this is the whale oil.
Dang, that is like weird. Well, can you show me a whale where they're cutting the blubber?
Oh, I'll search that up real quick.
So, can you believe it? They had all this oil basically right underneath them, and they're going out killing whales to get the oil, which of course is blubber. And don't forget pigs. What did we get from pigs in the ancient days?
Bacon.
Okay, you get more than bacon from a pig. All right, take that one where the guy's got a spear or something. Oh, that's a good one too. Yeah, so he's chomping the whale up there. Can you make it a little bigger?
Oh yeah, sure.
He's chomping the whale up, getting the oil. And we said, what about pigs? Pigs in the old days were bred for a lot of fat, and the fat was used for oil. In fact, the fat, I think, was called lard. Lard. Okay. So look at all that blubber, man. That's pretty cool. And of course, I guess you had meat with that too. All right, we'll kill it there. I'll go ahead and take it from there.
Alrighty.
Hey, hold on to Mrs. Butterworth. She's coming up later.
I got you.
Mrs. Butterworth is coming up later because Mrs. Butterworth, she's going to tell us about viscosity, the word viscosity. All right, there's my PowerPoint again. So basically, guys, in 1859, they're saying that's one of the first times we found oil. And they struck the oil at 69 feet, and up came bubbling crude. Black gold. Texas, as you know, is a lot of oil that comes from there, but now they get oil from almost anything or anywhere. Most of that oil is refined, and of course, if we use a refinery, the oil is going to be segmented into all of its components, which the highest component, I think, coming out of that oil is going to be gasoline, right? You can get kerosene, you get diesel, you get propane, you get all type of different segments the more they refine the oil. And so that started a wave of exploration. Okay, look at this salt print. What's a salt print? I don't know. I think it's a picture they put on glass is what they call it. Anyway, that's an oil tar pit where oil is hanging on the ground in Pennsylvania, and they basically start scrumming the oil off and, of course, refining it. And when they refine oil, they cook it. And when you cook oil, that's called what? You even know what happens when you cook a chemical?
Burn?
You do burn it. And it has a name for those of you who know this sort of thing. You do know you cook it, crack it. Okay, I guess it's just me then. I'm from Indiana, man, and you can go to Indiana and they've got like a #1 Coke plant, a #2 Coke plant, and I'm not talking about Coca-Cola either. They basically refine the oil with heat, they cook it, and they crack it. They basically release the power that's inside of that chemical. It's pretty awesome stuff. Before mineral oils were used, we used animal oil or vegetable oil. So can you name me some oil that comes from trees? Oil that comes from trees.
Syrup.
Syrup? Well, yeah, because you can get maple syrup. But wait a minute, make a syrup and oil is two different things.
God, Michael, why you say that?
Hey, how about this? How about oil from a vine? How about that? If you don't want to say a tree, how about a vine? Oil from a vine. You guys know the answer as soon as I say it.
Olive oil.
Olive oil. How about grape oil? How about sunflower seed oil? There's lots of things. How about peanut oil? You could squeeze a peanut hard enough and make juice come out of it. The juice is oil. Oil's all around us. Okay? Vegetable oil. What's the biggest vegetable oil there is? What's the plant that makes it? It's in all of your, well, they also make syrup out of it too. It's in your potato chips.
Corn, starch.
Corn oil, right? How about corn syrup, right? When they say we've got corn syrup in there, they mean the sugars from those kernels, man. Lots of power in there. So by the 1930s, they had about, what, 35 million cars. Can you imagine owning one of those today? A couple of you guys may wind up with an old car that you're going to restore or buy, and keep it in your family forever? Okay, so why do we need engine oil? What's going on? What is the point of this engine oil?
To
What do you think?
lubricate the pistons from
Yeah,
metal
we've
and
got
metal
to
contact.
lubricate. You got it. We've got to lubricate. But oil actually does more than just lubricate and reduce friction. Oil also, well, hey, take a look at the PowerPoint here.
It cleans.
Hey, yep, it cleans. Oil cleans. Oil actually has a lot of additives in it. By the time we're done today, you're going to realize that oil is a recipe, and mixed into that recipe are additives. And some of the additives have to do with color, smell, how it pours, how it doesn't foam up. In fact, some of the codes they put on the oil bottle are additives. It's pretty interesting how that works. So the first thing, very good, students, as you said, we're going to reduce friction. So if you think about it, you've got two moving parts. And in an engine, these moving parts rub together, metal on metal. And if metal on metal rubs long enough, we're going to tear it up. So we're going to put something between the metal pieces to reduce friction. So anything can be a lubricant, guys. Water can be a lubricant. It's just not a good one. Vaseline is a lubricant. Crisco oil is a lubricant. The oil, the grease, the other day, I forgot what the student was doing, but he came in and asked me for anti-seize, and they're going to use that to keep metal parts from sticking together. It's basically a lubricant. If we do an oil change and your car requires grease, right, we take a grease gun and we pump lubricant in between the moving parts, right? So pretty good. So it's going to reduce engine wear. It's going to reduce noise and reduce friction. So I guess I'll raise my hand on this question here. So how many of us have had an engine where we ran it like 4 quarts low of oil?
I have.
Right? And you drive it and you hear this clack, 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 clack sound. You're like, oh man, I better check my oil. And then you pull the dipstick, nothing's on there. Put 1 quart in, nothing's on there. You put 2 quarts in, dang, nothing. You put 3 quarts in, you're like, hey, I'm getting something on the stick. I must be 4 or 5 quarts low, right? So the oil is absolutely going to reduce friction, reduce noise, reduce wear, keep things quiet, right? All right. Oil also reduces shock. So as parts bang into each other, they're not just banging metal to metal, but there is a thin coat of oil sitting there. And you guys who had gasoline engines, let me throw this question out to you. What would be one of the main reasons for honing your engine? Remember you had to hone the engines, or you learned about that?
So you could get better scoring marks?
You had to put these scratch marks on the cylinder walls. For what purpose?
For the oil to stick to the
Right.
Oil
You
channels.
got it. You've got it. The little microscopic scratches that you guys put on the cylinder walls with the honing balls or the honing stones. And we call that a crosshair pattern. And on that crosshair pattern, which is really microscopic scratches, is what you're doing. You are making oil sit on those scratches. Those little blue dots are my oil sitting on the cylinder wall. And if your cylinder walls were too shiny and had a heavy gloss to them, then the oil hits the wall and basically falls. But if you had little teeny scratches there, the oil sits in the scratches. And then, of course, as the piston rubs up and down, there's oil sitting there, right? Reducing shock. Now, let's take a look at your camshaft or crankshaft when you start up. Now, first of all, in my little shaft here, this is, highly exaggerated. But in your engine, when you first start, you do not have oil sitting here. Oh, Mr. Young, what are we looking at? Well, think about it. If you have a camshaft, you know that camshaft goes around in circles, right? And while it goes around in circles, it goes around in a bore. So it can be a camshaft, a crankshaft, valves, all kind of other parts that have to move in an engine. There has to be a space inside there. And in my day, the space was somewhere between 2 thousandths of an inch and 5 thousandths of an inch. And that space allowed oil to get in. So here you are in the first shot here where my arrow is. You're starting your car after it's been sitting for a while, and you have very little or no oil here. So when you start up, this part is moving dry. That's why if you really pay attention to your engine on a cold day, your engine makes some really weird sounds when you first start it on cold days. That's what I've noticed with my engine. It'll make the weirdest sounds.
It sounds so good when you have a straight pipe.
Really? When it's cold or at all times?
Oh no, when it's cold, you go.
Really?
Yeah.
I never hear an engine straight pipe cold. I always hear them passing me up in the highway making all that noise.
Just ask Michael. He had like.
I got you. What I hear on my vehicles, especially when it's cold, is sometimes I hear like whining sound, like wow, wow, wow. Now this is while the engine is running, and I don't know if that's the alternator, water pump, whatever. But if you think about it, if you're at 0 degrees, there's just a whole lot of parts that aren't ready to turn yet. But anyway, let's get back to the picture here. At startup, you have no oil in between the moving parts or very little. Okay, now the engine is running a little bit, and this little hole here lets the oil in. And as the oil comes in, you have to understand that oil is probably thick. So you have thick oil moving through small holes. And thick oil doesn't like to move through small holes. All right, then as that engine warms up a little more, now we're only talking about a few seconds to the third shot, the oil comes in and it encapsulates or surrounds the moving shaft. And now you're ready, right? I've got a nice bead of oil. No part is banging on each other. Now, how much time this takes to actually occur, it kind of depends. Because if I brought all your cars in tomorrow and we checked your oil, how many of you would be low on oil?
Me?
Me too. I'm getting an oil change on Friday, but I bet you $100 in my truck I am a quart to a quart and a half low, because I said to myself, I'm not going to add any oil. I'm going to change it on Friday. So I'm cheap like that, right? I don't want to waste a quart, but I really should be taking care of that. Especially you boys cannot play games with your oil because you have a turbocharger. And turbochargers need good, fresh, clean oil. And we don't need to be running our cars low or putting the wrong oil in there. And you've got a turbo sitting there, and turbos spin at a very high rate of speed. And they definitely have to have a nice oil feed. All right, so my engine has started up and I'm running and I'm looking good. Next part of the oil. Dude, your oil cleans everything and cools it. So as that engine gets hot, if you're thinking that the radiator and the antifreeze do all of the cooling, you are sadly mistaken. Many of our cars today have oil coolers on them. You know, they take the engine oil and run it through a cooler and then bring it back. So we need the engine to be full of oil, not 1 or 2 quarts low. It doesn't cool the engine properly. Mr. Young, what parts of the engine would actually get cooled by oil? Well, take a look at the picture here. So in the picture here, I have a crankshaft, and this crankshaft has counterweights on it, and those counterweights, they dip into the oil. You think of this as like splash lubrication. So as the crank dives into the oil, it splashes underneath. Now, you already know you have an oil pump, right? And the oil pump is pumping oil. But your engine is using at least 2 types of systems. We're splash lubricating, which simply means we just lubricate and splash all over the place. And in the other place, we use a pump that pushes the oil. And as that oil moves on hot parts and then falls back to the sump is the oil pan, okay? It's cooling. So one of the main purposes of oil is it keeps things cool. It removes heat from the internal parts of that engine. So keep your oil filled up. But Mr. Young, you just said you don't fill up your oil. Okay, don't do as I do. Do as I tell you what to do. That's what old people do, don't they? Like, don't do what I do. Don't be smoking. Don't ever smoke. Don't ever smoke. All right, get out of here. All right. Next purpose of oil is it cleans. Guys, you ain't going to believe this. Oil has detergent in it. Oil has detergent in it. And that detergent actually cleans things. And so what happens to the oil is a lot of the additives that are in the oil, they actually go bad. And so as I told you the other day, oil doesn't go bad. The base components of the oil, that really doesn't go bad. What goes bad is all of the additives in the oil. And today's oils can have up to about 30% additives in that oil. So if those additives wear out, it's going to cause some type of problem in your engine. And there's a lot of people driving around and they're not changing the oil as they should. Hey, that brings us up to a really cool question. Hey, there must not be anybody here because I said really cool question and nobody's asking me, hey, Mr. Young, what?
I was wondering is there any way you can install an oil cooler on your car?
I would probably think so. Just about every car could probably take one. They use an adapter right around the oil filter. So where the oil filter goes, they would put an adapter there. And that adapter would make the oil go to the front of your engine through hoses. And at the front of your engine, you would have like this little teeny cooler. And then it would run backwards and up into the engine. And then they would say, when using this oil cooler, you must always add half a quart more oil to your car because the cooler's taking up oil space. I forgot what my really cool question was, guys.
Oh yeah, Mr. Young, what's your really cool question?
I forgot. Since nobody asked me, I forgot. Don't worry, it will come back to me before the hour is done. All right. Next thing the oil does, guys, is it seals things. The oil seals things. And it seals things microscopically. Think about it. When you scratch the cylinder walls with a hone, and then oil is supposed to sit on top of those scratches or on the ledges that you've created, that becomes a seal. Sealing what? Well, think about it. Your piston rings to the cylinder wall, you have to have a seal there. Without that seal, right, we would explode the mixture, and then a lot of the mixture would go right past the rings and wind up into the oil sump as pressure. So oil seals things. Microscopic spaces have to be sealed, and they need to be sealed with good, clean oil. All right, let me back up. Here's my question for you, the important question I had that nobody would answer. Let me see how I can phrase this. I want to phrase it in such a way where I don't give out the answer. Okay, here, I'll do it this way. When should your oil be changed? When should you change it?
Every 3,000 miles.
Okay, so we got 3,000 miles on the survey. Anybody else?
10,000 miles.
10,000. What did you say?
Damn, you don't care
10,000 miles.
10,000.
Doesn't it depend on the oil?
That's for Volkswagen that I noticed. Every vehicle is different, but for the one that I drive, it's 10,000 miles.
Okay. Okay, so I got 3,000. I got 10,000. Anybody else?
I said it depends on the oil.
Okay, depends on the oil itself. And I'm looking in the chat box. Martel says much. Change the oil as much as you want. That's pretty cool. He says depending on how you drive. Hey, guys, the best way to change your oil for the proper intervals depends on what your computer says. It depends on your computer. Think about it. If your computer is watching what the engine is doing, it knows how many times you started cold. It knows how many times you're an Uber driver, right? So you like to let your car idle all the time. It knows how much stop and start that you go. So the intervals on newer cars are based on driving habits. the oil change intervals, the best way to know when to change your oil is based on driving habits. And the computer monitoring system is going to tell us that. And I would suspect, although I'm not sure, depending on the year of your car, I would suspect half the students in the room have an oil change monitor on their car where it pops up on their dash. Is that true, Martel? I mean, do you got that? Michael,
Yes,
do you
sir.
got that? Andy?
Mine is, but it's just based off how many miles you drive.
Yeah, mine is too. Mine tells me every like 10,000.
So
Yeah,
do you think
usually
it's,
whatever you drive, so whichever one comes first.
yeah, but do you think if you have a monitor on there, it's popping up every 3,000, or do you think it's based on your habits?
For me, it's just based on my habits. I choose to change it between every 3,000 to 5,000 if I have to push it, but
Yeah.
you know, it just depends for me.
Yeah, because some of you guys are racing and running and ripping and doing what you're doing. And then you're right. Also, it depends on the quality of the oil that you're using. If you're using a top flight oil, basically a
Let's
full
go,
synthetic,
baby.
you're pulling full synthetic, you can usually get a little bit more out of those oils. Although I don't trust it anymore. I've got Volvos, and whatever it tells me on my monitor, and I can't change it, whatever it says on the monitor is what I do. And it has nothing to do with mileage. It has nothing to do with that. It has to do with driving habits on all of my Volvos. Pretty cool, pretty cool. I did a lady's oil change, and I don't like to do oil changes at her house. Her dad passed away, and he took care of all the oil changes. And now she called me. And I said, you know, it's kind of expensive for me to come over there. And she goes, oh, no, I want you to do it. I don't want to take it anywhere else. I'm like, okay. So, you know, average oil change for me is like $100 for a regular American car for most. For a foreign car, Mercedes, Lexus, Volvo, they're close to $200 because they don't call them oil changes. They call them scheduled maintenance. We're supposed to check all these things. So anyway, I change her oil. And then about a month and a half later, she calls me up. She says, I need another oil change. And I was like, wait a minute. I just changed your oil. And she goes, oh, it says so right on my dash. And then I'm like, wow, what kind of driving are you doing that it's asking for another month? And it had a lot to do with idling. She's sitting in her car and letting that thing run for hours because it did not add up to 3,000 miles or 4,000 from one oil change to the other. I want to say it was like 1,500 miles she put in. So her extended idling time made the oil change requirement different, not just mileage. Pretty cool stuff, huh? So we want to keep that oil clean. We said the oil seals, right? And now we're interested in the differences in oils. So I don't know about you guys, but if you go to the flea market, garage sales, or look online, you can find these things, okay? In my day, every can of oil was literally an oil can. It's an oil can of oil. And this ain't a can. The top was metal, and the body of it was like a cardboard type of thing, kind of like what they put biscuits in, like Pillsbury Doughboy biscuits. You could take a knife and poke a hole in it, and the biscuits pop out. Same thing happens here. So people collect these things. They collect them with oil inside of them, or they will collect them with no oil inside of them. Now, you ought to ask Mr. Zellick next time you see him, say, hey, Mr. Zellick, can you show me a picture of your oil can collection? And I'm pretty sure he's got a picture somewhere because I went into his garage and I think I seen hundreds of oil cans in his garage, big ones, small ones, names I never heard of before. And a few of the cans were actually leaking oil out. We used to put these things in the trunk of our cars, and then when they get so cold, they would almost burst, man. And you got this oil messed in your car. So if anybody's into collecting oil cans, you might find that interesting. All right, oil viscosity. Get ready, lab assistant. We're going to be interested in oil viscosity. So does anybody know what viscous means or viscosity in the fluid? What does this mean?
How thick it is or how thin?
This has to do with how thick or thin it is, viscosity. Now, when I went to the hospital and I thought I was having a heart attack, what did they give me to change my viscosity?
Blood thinners.
Okay, but you could buy this blood thinner at Walgreens, Target, any place.
Isn't it like Baylor or something like that?
You're close. You're saying the word wrong. They gave me aspirin, man. They gave me children's aspirin. So I went in there. I'm having chest pains. I'm having chest pains. And before they even looked at me, man, they gave me 4 tablets and said, take these. And I took it, and it tasted like orange. And I asked, what is this? And they said, oh, this is children's orange bear aspirin. I'm like, why are you giving me that? You don't even know what's wrong with me yet. And they go, oh, in case you're having a heart attack, we're going to thin your blood out. So what did they do? If my blood was real thick, the aspirin is going to make the blood thinner. And that way, if there's a blockage, the thin blood will go through it. Okay, makes sense. So viscosity has to do with the thickness of something. It's the ability of a liquid to flow. And you won't believe how complicated this is going to get. In fact, we're going to get into it pretty deep after break when I show you how we're going to figure all this stuff out. What would be another good one here? All right, before break here, we're going to take break in about 10 minutes. Before break, I'm interested in Mrs. Butterworth. I'm interested in Mrs. Butterworth.
I think you're.
And Mrs. Butterworth is a syrup. And you're going to tell me something about her viscosity. All right, you ready, lab assistant? Take over.
I gotcha.
Give
This
me
is
some.
the only picture I could find.
Oh no! What are you talking about? Dude? I found hundreds of pictures this morning.
I didn't want to show it.
Don't show me hey, don't show any bad things.
All right, I got this lady.
Okay, that's cool. But Mrs. Butterworth is syrup, and Mrs. Butterworth could talk. All right, now can you punch up another Mrs. Butterworth?
I got you.
Mrs. Butterworth syrup. All right, now my first question to the students is this. Why? Well, here's the question. Let me change this way. Do you need to put syrup and give me images? There should be one where she's pouring over some pancakes.
Yeah, I couldn't find that one. Would you
All right,
Just look up Aunt Jemima.
No, we can't do that right now. Mrs. Butterworth is what I want. Okay, hot shots. Here's my question to you. All right. Pick anything with Mrs. Butterworth. Now, there she goes. Pancakes right there. Hey, my question to you is this. Do you need to put Mrs. Butterworth in the refrigerator?
No.
No.
So
If it's
No.
if it's put in the refrigerator, yes.
Yes, for what now? I heard that one.
If it says to put it in the refrigerator, yes.
Oh,
But I
okay,
don't-
yes. Okay, if certain things say yes. But syrups are full of sugars. And so sugars is kind of a natural preservative. So why do people put syrup in the refrigerator, seeing that Mrs. Butterworth don't need to be in the refrigerator?
I'll make it thicker.
Okay, right. Because if we put Mrs. Butterworth in the refrigerator, we're going to make her thicker, which will do what to her ability to flow?
Pour out slowly, very.
Yeah, it's going to decrease it. So oils have different viscosity to them. That's why we're interested in 10W30s as opposed to 5W30. But in my day, when I was a kid, guys, if we left Mrs. Butterworth out in the cabinets, the ants would get on top of Miss Butterworth and try to eat her. So my mother would always put Mrs. Butterworth or any type of syrup in the refrigerator to keep the bugs off of it.
Because she was thicker than a Snicker.
Man, she was thick. Now, the problem with Mrs. Butterworth is if she's in the freezer or the fridge, I don't like cold syrup on my pancakes. So how do we lower her viscosity?
Put it in the microwave.
We put her in the microwave. And every time we put her in the microwave, I would slam the door and Mrs. Butterworth would go, "Oh, no!" And then we'd heat her up, man, and she'd come pouring out of there. So oil, syrup, blood, and any type of liquid has a viscosity rating to it. Okay, thanks, Michael. You can come on.
Oh, yeah.
So after our break, we're going to figure out what is going on with viscosity and why this is one of the most important things you have to understand about oils, because we just can't put anything in somebody's car. And a lot of consumers are doing this. We've got turbochargers, variable valve timing, and we have engines that are made today with a much tighter tolerance. Engines are much tighter in the way they're built. Also, the way we inject fuel in today's engines. In the old days, we used to inject the fuel right on top of the intake valve. Today, we have direct injection. So your oil requirements are critical to what we're doing, as opposed to, hey, I can just pour anything into the engine. So after our little break here, we're going to see how the engineers rate the oil. And you should understand why we're talking 20, 30, 40, 50 weight oils, or 0, 5, 10, 20. We have different rates of flow at different temperatures. So we're going to take a look at this after our break. So let's see, what time is it?